up. Tribe up. We got 3 people in the house. Everybody hit that like button. You know what I'm saying? Hey, salute to Brian Bonner. We about to get into this show, y'all. Salute. Stronghold of the Naga, my Naga. Salute. We about to talk about something. Hey, by the way, I'm Blackjack, House of Cons. Salute. I hope everybody having a great day. Let me adjust my volume. I hope everybody having a great day on Blackjack. This is the House of Cons, man. You know what I'm saying? Hit the like, subscribe, share the video, you know, if you're new in the house. If you want to become a member, it's easy to do so. Get that star by your name, Managa. Salute. We got merchandise at www.strictlyformanagas.com. You can check it out. It's in the on the home page. It's in the description. But yeah, and we got the cash out. You know, all kind of ways to support. If you want to support the House of Cons, we're trying to grow this thing. But the best way you can support is to spread the word and help us get these subscribers up. Salute. Hey, I got a conversation I want to talk about tonight, man. You know, everybody been talking about reparations lately, so let's talk about it. I argue, shouldn't reparations include land? So that's the title of the show. Y'all saw the thumbnail. We saw this picture before. I've used this pic before, and we've already uncovered the source of this pic. But I felt like this pic was very fitting for tonight's show. Shouldn't reparations include land? So we done looked at this picture before, like I said. We already done discovered the source, and we done looked at the receipts of where this picture come from. We're going to talk about it one more time. We're going to move on with the real subject. The subject is shouldn't reparations include land? Here we see the colonizer smoking on the cigar. And we see the Negro Indian following him in the rear with a couple bags of money. Salute. We got the arrow to make sure we pointing that out. And in the backdrop, they're in front of a dollar bill. So we talking about reparations. Shouldn't reparations include land? We see this little Negro Indian, this little Naga feathered up with his 3 feathers and 2 bags of money and his loincloth wrapped around his waist. What's more important, my Naga, the money or the land? I'm quite sure y'all done heard of the Federal Reserve. Ain't they just printing it out? Is it all fiat? Is it all really worthless? What you gonna buy with the money? European goods? What about the land, Managa? What about the land? But that's what we talking about. So we're gonna get into it, y'all. Like I said, y'all saw that pic before. We done talked about it before. But for the people that's new in the house that may not have seen that pic, I'm gonna show them where we got it from real quick, and we ain't gonna dwell on it long, because we got it in older live streams if you really want to get into it about that particular picture. But let's go to it really quick. Here's the source. Here's the receipt if you want to look at this picture for yourself. And this on www.hipstamp.com. Hipstamp.com. Hipstamp. And they tell you the picture's a USA Victorian trade card showing picture of bankroll, note, bill, coins, and men. And further down in the description right here, it tells us basically the same thing. It don't say much more, just about shipping. And I've been trying to find like further sources on this, further information on this source, but it's obviously an old source. And down at the bottom it says Amérique. That's in French. Amérique. So the French got something to do with this, and it says biscuits per note. Biscuits per note. Biscuits per note. So you know that's in French. And this is the source. It got the Naga. The Naga here looking like what you would call the slave. And then they got the Naga still feathered up. That's where the source of this picture come from. Anybody want to search it? Alright. So we got that out the way. Now let's get into the subject. Shouldn't reparations include land? Everybody talking about this colonizer dollar. Is that dollar even worth a damn? Managa, salute. We're looking at the inflation right now. Ain't your bills going up? So what are you really owed? Hey, salute, teaching 777 in the house, man. I gotta get some more I gotta get another member sample loaded up. No, so I'm gonna let off a couple rounds for teaching 777. The members in the house. Salute. Hey, Lilia, I hope I said your name right. Lilia in the house. Lilia. Salute. But we need to talk about what we really owe, man. You know, a lot of people want cash. A lot of people want these dollars. You know, but is that really where it's at? Is that really what's worth? Like I said, what you gonna buy the European goods with the European dollars? Is that what they really owe you? You know, they came on your land and you want them to pay you their money? I mean, that's all good if you want to still coexist. See, some people want to still coexist. Some people want to get along and go along with this system. Then you got other people like me that want to overthrow it. So you big dummy. I ain't trying to get along and go along. I ain't trying to spend $8. I'm tired of $8. I want it to burn to the ground. I want it to fall. We need to start over. We had to start over before. You know, the Naga is the origin. You shouldn't be scared to start over. I'm ready for it to fall, to crumble on down, the dollar to be nothing, burnt to flames. So I'm ready to burn this system down. I'm not trying to go along with the system. I'm not trying to line my pockets with colonizer dollars just to keep living in their system. That ain't doing me no good. I want my land back. That's what I want. That's what I'm talking about. So, cause I got if you got a true understanding of history, you shouldn't see it no other way. You shouldn't see it no other way. We don't need their dollars. We can make our own dollar with your face on it, Managa, or our ancestors on it. But let's get into it, because we need to talk about what we really owe. Since we talking slavery, who got enslaved? When those so-called Negroes got enslaved, so-called black people got enslaved. The question is, the burning question about these so-called Negroes, so-called black people that got enslaved, where were they from? Were these black slaves Americans, indigenous Americans that was always in America, or were they Africans? What type of black slaves we talking here? Let's get into it. Let's dig on it, y'all. And that's why I pointed that thumbnail out right away to let some people get the picture. Huh? When you talk about American or you talking about African, what are you talking about? You still talking about so-called Negro. Let's make an understanding. Let's get one thing clear. So the first source we're gonna look at, and this is the primary source. This is the main source that we're gonna observe, and this is from www.brown.edu. www.brown.edu, Managa. You know, this is a primary source, Managa. And we're gonna use this Charles Johnson in the house. Salute Charles Johnson, tribe up. Yeah, this is gonna be our main source we're gonna discuss right here. And let me get my hold on, let me line it up, man. Y'all can see correct. Don't slipping. Everybody can see that. This is the primary source we're gonna use, and it's on, like I said, it's on www.brown.edu. And it's colonial enslavement of Native Americans, included those who surrendered to colonial enslavement in America. Right away we talking indigenous Americans. We ain't talked about Africa. We see ships in the background. Are those slave ships? Possibly, but what kind of slaves? Are those the indentured servant slaves? Are those the white slaves from Europe? Is that the army of white slaves coming with the colonizer conquistador to enslave you on your land? Those ships wasn't bringing no blacks. They wasn't bringing no African blacks. I say the title is Colonial Enslavement of Native Americans, included those who surrendered to. Surrendered to who? Surrendered to the colonizers, right? We see it in the picture, even though they got it whitewashed. But we're going to use the information because we know they're talking about us. You know, you got to ignore the whitewash when you know it's you. When you know the true indigenous American was you, you can read the story, eat the meat and spit out the bones. You can ignore the hijack. Study by Brown University. Historian. Study about historian, man. it finds that Native Americans who surrendered during King Philip's War were sold into slavery with long-lasting effects. Who's suffering from the slave mentality, my nigga? Who's suffering the long-lasting effects, my nigga? You talking about the reparations? What do they really owe you? Your land back? Providence, Rhode Island. A study by Linford D. Fisher, Associate Professor of History at Brown University, finds that Native Americans, including non-combatants who surrendered during King Philip's War to avoid enslavement, were enslaved at nearly the same rate as captured combatants. So the people who weren't the indigenous Americans that said, the Nagas that was like, man, we just want peace. Y'all all over here fighting on our land. They got enslaved too, along with the Nagas that stood up and fight, along with the Nagas that stood up and said, hell no, it's war. Everybody, they say we enslaving all you Nagas. Native American slavery, Naga slavery, is a piece of the history of slavery that has been glossed over. Fisher said between 1492 and 1880, between 2 and 5.5 million Native Americans were enslaved. While natives had been forced into slavery and servitude as early as 1636, it was not until King Philip's War that natives were enslaved in large numbers, Fisher wrote in the study. The 1675 to 1676 war pitted Native American leader King Philip, also known as Metacom, and his allies against the English colonial settlers. During the war, New England colonies routinely, they did it all the time, over and over again. It was a routine, ship Native Americans who got shipped, not Africans, Native Americans as slaves to Barbados, Bermuda, Jamaica, the Azores, Spain, and Tangier in North Africa. Oh, so they ain't bring nobody from Africa. They shipped Nagas to Africa. You don't see what's going on? Fisher said. This from Brown University. A historian wrote this. Blackjack ain't write it. While Africans who were enslaved did not know where they would be taken, Native Americans understood that they could be sent to the Caribbean plantations and face who was getting sent to the plantations in the Caribbeans. American Indians, Managa, not Africans. American Indians. They're telling you right here. Native Americans on plantations and face extremely harsh treatment far from their homes and communities, according to the study. Fear of this fate spurred some Native Americans to pledge to fight to the death, while others surrendered, hoping to avoid being sent overseas, the study found. They say we want to stay here in America, in the stronghold of the Naga, our home. Fisher's study, Why Shall We Have Peace to Be Made Slaves? Indian Surrenderers During and After King Philip's War, appears in the journal Ethnohistory, a volume devoted to scholarship on indigenous slavery in the New World. Native American enslavement was documented in who they documented? Who's documenting? Who we documenting right now? We ain't got a document about Africa yet. They just throw it in there to throw you off because they know these people is black. Native American enslavement was documented in colonial correspondence, in shipping records, in court cases, in town records, in colonial government orders, and petitions from colonies, all documented in all these places. Don't forget the wars. But where are the documents for your Africans, for your Pan-Africans? Where are your documents? Where are you Pan-Africans? Documents in colonial correspondence, in shipping records, in court cases, in town records, in colonial government orders, and petitions, and wars. They don't exist. Even contemporary official histories of the war all point to the same thing. Indians were enslaved in mass and either distributed locally or sent overseas to a variety of destinations, Fisher wrote in the study. Who was getting enslaved and sent overseas to a variety of destinations? Indians, American Indians, Negro Indians. Documented the wars. Why is no wars in African documented? They document everything. You mean to tell me they left their notebook home when they was in Zimbabwe? No, they wasn't there. Studies in native slavery have opened up in recent years, Fisher said, with award-winning books about native slavery. These studies about it. published in 2002 and 2003, highlighting the systematic nature. They say native slavery, indigenous slavery was systematic. They say it wasn't no system of African slavery in America. They say it was all indigenous American Indian slavery. They say they had a whole system. They say it had a routine. Even within the English colonies. Fisher's study on those who surrendered in King Philip's War looks at what factors contributed to native slavery and the impact enslavement had on Native Americans for generations. Your generations, Managa. You don't see these fake Native Americans in the reservation talking about they was being enslaved. They brag about saying they enslaved you. They call you, they say, yeah, you on the roll because you was a freedman. They say they enslaved you. It don't line up with the real history though. To surrender or resist, Fisher examines the short and long-term effects of native slavery in his study, noting that during the war, the widespread fear of being sold overseas as slaves was used by Philip's allied Native Americans as a tool to recruit natives to their side. They say, yeah, you better join our side or we're going to send you overseas. Other Native Americans surrendered, Fisher wrote, either in response to explicit inducements by the English offering mercy, or because they hoped that doing so would be understood as a statement of neutrality. These surrenderers could be individuals, families, larger bands, or entire communities, entire tribes, Managa, Fisher said. Some Native Americans offered their services to the English in the wars, like the Awashanks, the female chief of a confederation of Sakonnet Indians, who pledged support on the condition that Sakonnet men, women, and children would not be killed or sent out of the country as slaves. They sending Nagas out of the country as slaves. What the hell make you think they bringing Africans here? According to the study, especially near the war's end, Fisher wrote, natives surrendered in large numbers in direct response to promises of leniency, but leniency had no consistent practical meaning. They enslaved you Nagas anyway and started calling you African Americans. They said, ha, we got you Nagas. English authorities focused first on disarming natives, either by selling guns turned in by surrenderers or prohibiting them from bearing arms. Who always getting prohibited from bearing arms, Managa? Who? You. Fisher wrote, English communities objected to letting natives who surrendered simply go free, and housing and feeding them was complicated. So often captured and surrendered Native Americans were simply sold into slavery, both overseas and within New England, or forced into servitude for limited terms within English households. In addition, Native communities were asked to pay an annual tribute of 5 shillings per male as an acknowledgement of their subjection, who they subjugating, who they subduing, who they enslaving to the government of Connecticut, according to the study. Colonial motivations. Native American responses. New Englanders' motivations for enslaving Native Americans included making money and clearing land for colonists to claim. Fisher wrote, it was also easier to remove Native Americans from the regions than to sell them locally and risk having the natives run away to find refuge. Fisher also argues that let's hold up. They said it was easier to remove Native Americans from the region than to sell them locally and risk having the Native Americans run away to find refuge with the Seminoles. Who was running away to find refuge? Not Africans. Who was escaping slavery and finding refuge with the tribes? Who? Native Americans, Managa. They was black, they was Negroes, but they was Indians, Managa, not Africans. From the it said, Fisher wrote, it was also easier to remove Native Americans from the region than to sell them locally and risk having the natives run away to find refuge. Fisher also argues that there was an ideological component of enslaving Native Americans. Among colonists, there was a presumption involving the innate inferiority of natives, he said. there were proto-racial notions, proto-racial, black and white notions, right? There were proto-racial notions of European superiority, plus an appetite for land, he said. If you look at the history of the colonies, slavery happened almost right away. Fisher, no, ain't no almost, it did happen right away. Fisher said he is increasingly convinced that for colonists, slavery was a normal part of their mental framework, my naga. Some free Native Americans working with the English tried to influence where Native American surrenderers would be settled and how they would be treated. Fisher wrote, like Uncas, the sachem of the Mohegans in Connecticut. See that? Some free Native Americans working with the English. Some free Native Americans working with the English, Managa. Connect the dots, Managa. Connect the dots. It says some free Native Americans working with the English. What he look like he working with the English right now. He got a big old bag. He got two big old bags, right? You Nagas want the bag, huh? You want the trick bag. Uncas who fought on the side of the English seemed determined post-war to keep Indians out of English households, and even more important, off of English merchant ships that threatened to take them to the Caribbean. Who was getting taken to the Caribbean, my naga? Niggas, Negroes, Nagas, whatever you want to call them, blacks, anything but African Americans. Indians, my naga. Who the Caribbean is loaded with? We just did a whole bunch of live streams about Haiti, Jamaica, Brazil, Colombia, Cuba, all these Nagas, the indigenous Nagas getting enslaved in there and getting brought there. So not only was they enslaving the indigenous Nagas in the Caribbeans, the Tainos, the Caribs, they was also bringing Pequots and other Indians from North America, other Negroes to be enslaved right there. Yeah, take them down to the Caribbean where the other Caribs at. We're going to slow this down, man, to make sure we got a clear understanding. We're going to get one thing clear, Managa. They were sending Indians from North America, from the King Philip's War, to Barbados, to the Caribbean, to be enslaved on the plantations with the Taino slaves that was already there, with the Carib slaves that was already there. It says Uncas who fought on the side of the English seemed determined post-war to keep Indians out of the European household. And they sent them to the Caribbeans, right? In other cases, Fisher wrote, Native Americans requested captives as servants for themselves. So who was the Native Americans enslaving? Were they enslaving Africans? Nope. Then Native Americans said, nah, give us the Indian slaves. That's all you got anyway. So we don't want the white slaves. They say give us the Indians. To keep a service for themselves. Sometimes to keep them out of English household. We say, nah, keep the Nagas out the white households. We'll take them. They say, nah, we'll if they're gonna be slaves, we'll take them with us. It says sometimes to keep them out of English households or served as slave trading middlemen. In one case, Fisher notes, a Native American slave owned by a Pequot leader was sold by him to an enslaved African woman. Now peep this. Now let's slow this down. Salute, ancient one in the house. Salute. Let's slow this down. There's some hijack present. I see it already. Y'all see where the mouse at? Let's slow that last sentence down. It says, in one case, Fisher notes. It says in one case, in one out of the whole Americas. In one case, Fisher notes, a Native American slave owned by a Pequot leader. A Pequot is Native American or Indian. So an Indian slave owned by an Indian leader, a Native American slave owned by a Pequot leader was sold to an enslaved African woman. So first thing off, we know the African woman is a hijack, right? Now see, they didn't say color. Could the African woman be a white woman? What about the Native American slave? Could he be a black slave? What about the Pequot leader? Is he a black leader? Is the African woman a black woman? They didn't say a color on anybody. They said a Native American slave owned by a Pequot Indian leader was sold to an enslaved African woman. All right, so first off, we understand that possibly everybody is black. All right. The Native American slave owned by the black Pequot leader sold to a so-called African black woman. So who are the blacks? Are they American or are they African? We all talking blacks right now, right? Negroes. A Native American slave owned by a Pequot leader was sold by him to an enslaved African woman. So let's uncover that hijack first. We talking all Negroes. Negro. But with this African woman thing, if we finna dodge this hijack all the way around, how do we know she's African? Where's the proof she's African? What country in African? We see what tribe this Indian is with, the Pequot leader. Where is this so-called African woman for? And this is the simplest of all hijacks. When were enslaved women allowed to buy slaves? Salute. Tell me when since a slave could buy another slave. When was that taught in history? Show me that. It says, let's read it again. It says, in one case, in the whole United States, in the Americas period, it says, Fisher notes, a Native American slave owned by a Pequot leader was sold by him to an enslaved African woman. So the leader can sell a slave to a slave. This don't make sense to me. Somebody's lying all the way around. It's loaded with lies. All I got out of all this is we talking about Indians, and possibly all three were Indians. The enslaved woman is another Indian, or was she even just a free woman of color that bought the servant? Because like they just told us, they said they was determined to keep Indians out of English households. They said giving them us. If you're going to enslave them, we'll take them. And now they telling us a Native American slave sold by a Pequot leader to an African woman. Come on, y'all. That's why I take my time. I read very clearly. You're not gonna slide it past me, man. I don't care who you think you is. You're not gonna slide shit past me, man. I don't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? Because I would take my time. I don't care. I would read it 5-10 times. Lasting effects. The shadow of native enslavement in New England extends into the 18th century and beyond. Fisher said, and beyond. There are records. Records of what? African slave ships? Oh shit. What, records of African tribes and countries or wars? Let's see. There are records of people petitioning for freedmen in the 1740s who were the descendants of Native Americans first enslaved during King Philip's War. Oh, so these freedmen, huh? These freedmen is really slaves from the king. They were Pequot Negroes, huh? You call them African slaves. You saying the fake Native Americans that don't weasel they way for $5 on the dog's road, telling you, yeah, nigga, you on the road because your ancestors was our slaves. Y'all was freedmen. Y'all was freedmen, slaves from Africans. Like anywhere in history, Native Americans got on a boat and went and got slaves from Africa. And don't try to tell me Native Americans bought African slaves from colonizers. Ain't the colonizers the Native American enemies? None of that makes sense. You say no. Well, they bought those African slaves from white people. Yeah, fucking right. The same people they at war with, the same people who claim African slaves was escaping and seeking refuge with the Indian tribes. Oh, so you selling the tribes in slaves though, but you complaining about niggas escaping, blending in with the Indians. What is the truth? We know the truth. That's why you decorating so many lies. And we'll take our time and dispose one by one. Native Americans, American Indians never went to Africa and bought a slave, and they never bought slaves from white people. So explain the blacks that ended up on your rolls. It's telling us right here they were descendants of the Indians that fought during the King Philip's War and got enslaved. In the study he wrote, small legal loopholes. Yeah, and dishonest practice. Yeah, we know all about the colonial European loopholes and dishonest practices. We know all about it in the lies and mislabeling and relabeling and this and that. Another label to try to cover up who we truly are. Talking about y'all was freemen slaves on the road. Nigga, please. You think we stupid? When the Cherokees went to Zimbabwe and bought niggas. When the Cherokees went to the colonizers and bought niggas. Never. Stop lying. In the study he wrote, small legal loopholes and dishonest practice on the ground ensured that in many cases limited term service turned into lifelong chattel slavery, whips and chains, and even heritable slavery, inherited slavery. Who being subdued, my nigga? Who? In 1676, Connecticut officials decreed that a native slave's term of service could be lengthened but not shortened. They say you can lengthen it, but you can't shorten that nigga slave service. They say the Connecticut officials decreed that. It's in the records. Oh, well, another receipt. Where the decrees at from Zimbabwe or West Africa? They don't exist because they never happened. A law passed the same year by the Rhode Island. A law passed by the Rhode Island, huh? Where the law at from the West Africa? It don't exist because it ain't happened. No receipts. A law passed the same year by the Rhode Island General Assembly seemed on the surface to outlaw Indian slavery. It seemed to on the surface, but Fisher noted in practice that in other laws ensured. The other laws said, nah, we're going to ensure that native surrenderers were disposed of for the benefit of the colony with various terms of servitude. Slavery, servitude. You a servant, you a slave, you an indentured, a servant, an indentured servant, a slave. It's all a slave. You a servant. For Native Americans 5 years of age or younger, their servitude lasted until they were 30 years old. Hey, Sister Soul Main Radio in the house. Salute, tribe up. These enslavement practices, the land, the other land belongs to us, and it's gonna always belong to us. We don't need their dollars. They need. So what you want to kick them off the land and keep their money? Then what you gonna do with their money? You want to buy Gucci and Louis and European goods, man? I'm telling you, Nagas, now forget all their money, forget their European goods. It's time for Nagas to stand up and make your own money. You want a white man face on a dollar where you can put them off your land and make your own money? What you own it? Stop sucking on the white man titty. I am getting tired. What are we doing this for? I can switch the game up and go straight back to Mansfield content and make red pill shit. If everybody just want a damn check and want to buy Gucci and Louis, and ain't nobody talking about clearing our land and making our own money with a Naga on it. Dr. Umar packed the ship, take all you Nagas with him. Go spend European money in Europe. These enslavement practices permanently disrupted the lives, livelihoods, and kinship networks of millions of Indians, not thousands, Fisher wrote. And sometimes slavery was simply given another name. It was just simply given another name. Sometimes slavery was simply given another name. Simply call it FBA slavery. Junior Ninja in the house, salute, tribe up. Salute everybody in the house, tribe up. Give it another name. Call it FBA now. Call them African American slaves. Disrupt their kinship. Keep naming it over and over again. They don't care. They're not paying attention. This is what they saying about you, man. In 1721, 45 years after the end of King Philip's War, the Connecticut General Assembly took up the questions of second generation Native American child slaves. The Native American children who had been placed as servants in English households after the war that grown up and had children of their own, what should be done with them? Fisher wrote that while leaders did not approve of enslaving them, they also did not want to set them free. So that generations of children also became slaves, indentured servant. Servant is a slave. You just said slave, you just switched the language to servant. Child slave, servant, child slave, servant. You play word games with y'all, man. Don't get caught up on Mr. Forest for the trees, Managa. Native Americans sold overseas. Who got sold overseas? Occasionally made it back to the United States, Fisher wrote. Others died or disappeared into a wider slave market and labor force, or became established in the location where they were sent, like the modern day community or individuals in Bermuda and the Bahamas and the Virgin Islands and Jamaica and Haiti and Cuba and Colombia. Man, we just getting started, y'all. I'm not playing around. I'm not playing no games. I'm not going for no treats and trick bags. You can't throw me a bone, my nigga. Now we had the speaking the Fort Ton. Now we had the Schmalkalden, the Schmalkalden, and it's September 2017. We over here in Germany. You want to know what in Germany depicted the American Indian like? Who got enslaved, my nigga? You think you was an African slave, huh? You think you owed some money? You owed your land. Germany telling you. With the oyster shell behind his head, Managa. Don't it remind you of the Moor with the green, with the emerald clusters? Connect the dots, Managa. I don't forget nothing. He got an oyster shell behind his naga head. Don't it remind you of something, Managa? Oh, I'll remind you then if you don't remember. Man, they playing games with y'all in y'all face, man. Oh, he's the chief Saturaria, the Timuqua. Let me pull up the one holding the oyster shell, man. Hold on. You people playing games with y'all. Oh, let's see, hijack all the way there. I'm gonna get out of that. It's one where he's actually holding an oyster shell, just like the shell behind the naga head. I'll put it up. I got it saved in my files. Don't feel like digging through. This is just out the humbug here. But my man holding his oyster shells. You know the real Timuqua. Matter of fact, cut that out. Matter of fact, yeah, show this one. Yeah, salute the Cootie Mayo. This clip from Cootie Mayo thumbnail. He's showing the hijack. He's showing how they hijack you Nagas. He's telling you the Nagas, the Indians got enslaved, not Africans. He's showing you they whitewash you. Cootie Mayo showed you that one. Y'all want colonizer dollars for what? The Indian is you the whole time. It's your land. You can make your own dollar. We can take ownership. You talking generational wealth. You talking about real leadership. And you know, a lot of times we hear people say, yeah, black men don't lead. Well, you got a Naga trying to lead for real. Ain't no trying to follow this white zaddy and his money. No. Fuck they money. Slavery in Indian territory. Slavery in Indian territory, my Naga. Let's look what they say. With the U.S. increasing pressure for Indian removal, tensions became higher. Some chiefs believed removal was inevitable and wanted to negotiate the best terms possible to preserve tribal rights, such as the Choctaw, Greenwood, LaFleur. Others believed they should resist losing ancestral lands. Huh? You want reparations or you want your ancestral land, Managa? What do you want? What do you want, Managa? You think that reparation gonna hang around 10 generations from now? Do you long gone? What about your great grandchildren? They just don't have nothing that you done spun it up, huh? That land will still be round. And I ain't talking about land in their system. I'm talking about us taking our land back and removing them. Not paying no taxes. Not being subjected to nobody. Others believe they should resist losing ancestral lands for existence. Member of the Cherokee Treaty Party who believed removal was coming. Negotiated sections of land which the rest of the tribe repudiated. This conflict was carried to Indian territory. Man, see, when they was y'all talking this reparation stuff and wanting to take money. This what was going on then when the colonizers was taking the land. You got Nagas in the tribe saying we'll take the money and selling the land to the colonizer. And guess what? You got other Nagas saying hell no, we're not receiving our ancestral land. And guess what? Some people got killed. Some people making agreements with these colonizers, giving up our land. They got took the fuck out. Look it up. This conflict was carried to Indian territory where opponents assassinated some of the signatures of the land section treaty for alienating communal land. For they say, nah, y'all don't want the land back. You Nagas want to colonize the check and you want to keep them on the land. They say you want to sign a check. They say they got their ass assassinated. They said if y'all ain't tribe enough to get our land and to keep our land, y'all can go with the colonizer. That's what they said. The tensions among the Native Americans of the Southeast, Monaga Soup to the Southeast, stronghold of the Naga, your boy down here in Duval in Florida, FLA Monaga, Floridian Monaga. Yeah, I ain't no African American bitch, I'm a Floridian. Ain't no African nothing, I'm a Floridian motherfucker. Southeast was principally about land and assimilation rather than slavery. Most chiefs agreed that armed resistance was futile. The 5 civilized tribes took so-called African Americans they held in slavery. How did an Indian tribe get an African in slavery? African American ain't exist at the time. So let's cut that out. So how would they get an African in slavery? They never went to Africa. You mean the Cherokee was buying Nagas from the colonizers? Make it make sense. And we know where the colonizers got them Nagas from. So you running in circles. It say the 5 civilized tribes to African Americans they held in slavery with them to Indian territory, present day Oklahoma. Oh, well, how come the Nagas made Tulsa the richest then? If you took them there. When they were removed from the American Southeast by the U.S. government, missionaries and supporters of the American Board vociferously denounced Indian removal as cruel, oppressive, and feared such actions would push Native Americans away from converting Christians. Who all this Christianity? Your great grandma and all them, you devout Jesus worshippers. Who you think got converted? You see any of these fake $5 Indians talking about Jesus? No. It's in 1850 the U.S. Fugitive Slave Law was created and in both ways divided Native Americans in Indian territory. Runaway slaves in Indian territory was essentially debatable. It was debatable among Native Americans and the U.S. government. Native Americans heavily felt U.S. lawmakers were overstepping their boundaries, reaching over federal authority. Not all Nagas in Indian territory were held in slavery. Most, not a lot, most were free. An example of this would be a town of the eastern part of the Choctaw Nation was home to a diverse community that included free Nagas as well as people, free Nagas. Ain't no mix. You want to explain to us? Ain't no mix. Ain't no African free Nagas. In Indian territory, these communities were not a rarity. They were not rare. They were the broad most majority and complicated. They say it made things. They say it's complicated. Like you Nagas' last relationship. They say it's complicated. They say we're not a rarity, and they say it complicated the taking of censuses commissioned by the U.S. They say start putting Negro and African American on you niggas. Mo Naga in the house, salute. Legend of Naga Child in the house. Manhattan Project in the house, salute. Tribe up. Hey man, for those that don't know, Blackjack in the spirit of a war chief, my Naga. Ain't nothing sweet. Blackjack is not here to make friends, to make peace. Blackjack don't want the colonizer dollar. Blackjack is not the tribe leader. Blackjack is, I'm not trying to be Umar. Blackjack is a war chief. Blackjack on something else, y'all. So you come here, if you new, you better understand what you get yourself into over here. You best to understand. I am not about making friends with the colonizer. I am not about continuing to run the capitalist market. Salute to the original Copper Empress Holbert in the house. I am not on that. Yes, we got to use their money right now. Yes. You know why? Because Nagas ain't woke up yet. Then when Nagas wake the fuck up, we don't need their money no more. We make our own. Salute. Tribe up. The 5 civilized tribes own chattel slaves. Where? How did they get chattel slaves? So the 5 civilized tribes, where they bought them from the colonizers? Oh, so the colonizers sold African slaves, chattel slaves, to the 5 civilized tribes. Well, how come the colonizers always complaining that they slaves was escaping and blending in with and finding refuge with the tribes? Huh? What's going on? You double talking with the Ford talk here. What is going on? Did you sell them Africans, or did the Africans escape and go with them? What's the deal? We know neither. Smithsonian, y'all. We on the bitch ass Smithsonian website. Colonizer Smithsonian, right? Choctaw Chief Greenwood LaFleur had 15,000 acres of Mississippi land above the Mississippi home. Mal Mason and 400 enslaved Nagas, not Africans, Nagas, under his dominion. 400, what it was, his tribe. He lived like this. I thought he was in a tent. What? These are some of the pre-colonial structures that y'all knocked down and claim that they Victorian and all this shit. Claimed y'all built them. So when you think of the Trail of Tears, you likely imagine a long procession of suffering Cherokee Indians forced westward by a villainous Andrew Jackson. Perhaps you envision unscrupulous white slaveholders. Perhaps you envision, perhaps you got a vision in your head, Monarch, of white slaveholders whose interest in growing a plantation economy underlay the decision to expel the Cherokee, flooding in to take their place east of the Mississippi River. What you probably don't picture are Cherokee slaveholders, Foremost among them, Cherokee Chief John Ross. What you probably don't picture are the numerous Nagas, not African, Nagas, Cherokee owned, who made the brutal march themselves, or else were shipped in mass to what is now Oklahoma aboard cramped boats by their wealthy Indian masters. And in fact, these Nagas that was on the cramped boats, they got in Oklahoma and they made more money than their so-called Indian masters, who was never their masters at all. These Nagas made Tulsa, Oklahoma famous, while these $5 Indians did nothing. And what you may not know is that the federal policy of Indian removal, which ranged far beyond the Trail of Tears and the Cherokee, was not simply the vindictive scheme of Andrew Jackson, but rather a popularly endorsed congressional sanctioned campaign spanning the administration of 9 separate presidents. Yeah, Andrew Jackson. Yeah, the Seminole Wars, them Nagas was whooping y'all ass. Yeah, and the Trail of Tears right after that. You got the Seminole Wars, the 3 Seminole Wars, aka the Negro Wars, Negro Fort. Then right after that, you got Trail of Tears. Then right after that, you got Black Wall Street. And you want to try to call these Nagas Africans? Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Nagas make something out of nothing. Nagas went to Tulsa, so-called cramped and broke, and made something out of nothing. And y'all so focused on the check. Man, reparations is the land, y'all. It ain't the check. I want the land, man. I want the land. I don't want the check. I don't want the check. The check ain't got a Naga face on it. The dollar ain't got a Naga face on it. I don't want it. We need our own. Salute. I'm here to get your mind right. I ain't here to get you paid. I ain't here to tell you what you do with your money. If they do cut you a reparation check, I don't give a fuck. Do what you do. Buy a Bentley, invest it, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. It's not what I'm about. Matter of fact, if they give me the money, I'm gonna take the money and still want to kick their ass off the land with it. Y'all don't get. These uncomfortable complications. Man, it can't no. You cannot sit in here and tell me that you believe this shit we talking about over here. You cannot sit here and tell me that you believe in what we saying. That you believe that the Tamara Khan was you. You cannot tell me that you believe that the Tamara Khan was you. You cannot tell me that you believe the American Indian was you. You cannot tell me that you believe this was you, but you want to colonize the check and you said fuck the land. It don't make it make sense. Make it make sense. And on top of that, who done their genealogy? Somebody show me your African slave ancestry. Since we talking slavery, show me you want your check? Show your African slave ancestor. I'll wait. See, man, we gotta put our thinking cap on, man. You can't get ready to just take some bone the colonizer want to throw you, man. I mean, we got how many times we gonna get tricked, Managa? We gonna keep going for tricks? These uncomfortable complications. So it was complicated. Like the last relationship in the narrative were brought to the forefront at a recent event held at the National Museum of the American Indian, titled "Finding Common Ground." The symposium offered a deep dive into intersectional Naga history. Talking about African American, you talking African American, Native American, you talking Nagas. You talking all Nagas. They say it's complicated. Everything complicated when you don't know who you is. Everything complicated from all these broken ass homes. Everything complicated because niggas don't know who they is. You think you're African American, you think you don't own that, and you always talking about this the white man land. You talking about when the Naga down on your street, the first thing you want to say out your mouth is Nagas fighting over the white man land. No, Nagas killing each other over your own land, and that's why you're doing it. Because you think it belongs to somebody else. Because you don't give a fuck. You don't give a damn. You got trash outside your house right now. You don't give a fuck because you think it belongs to somebody else. You don't know it's your granddaddy shit. You don't know your granddaddy buried in the earth deep. No matter how over here, no matter how deep they dig, they gonna keep finding a Naga that look like you. You don't give a fuck about all that. You don't give a fuck about that. You done been here longer than they dollar. You don't believe in none of that shit. If it's that serious, just be a Pan-African. If you gonna run with this bullshit, this hijack history, be a Pan-African then. Cherokee Freedmen controversy. The Cherokee Freedmen, it's a controversy. I wonder why. What a coinkydink. Was it political and a tribal dispute between the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma and descendants of the Cherokee Freedmen regarding the issue of tribal membership? We just saw that the Freedmen was really descendants of Pequots. We just saw that. We just read that. We read it over here. Send them out the country as slaves. The Freeman was really just descendants of Pequots. We just read that. Native Americans to run away to find refuge. We just read it. I go back through it. Just call them a freeman. They say yeah, these freemen. They say yeah, there are records of people petitioning for freedom in the 1740s who were the descendants of Native Americans first enslaved in King Philip's War. Yeah, y'all talking these freedmen. Y'all talking what the freedmen look like, what the freemen look like. Controversy had resulted in several legal proceedings between the two parties from the late 20th century to August 2017. During the antebellum period, the Cherokee and other southeast Native American nations known as the Five Civilized Tribes held Nagas as slaves, as workers and property, The Cherokee elites created an economy and culture. I don't even gotta get into all that. We're just connecting the dots, man. I don't need to read no fluff. Slavery among Native Americans in the United States. Where did they really get their slaves from? They bought them from Europeans. Where did Indians get their slaves? Slavery among Native Americans in the United States includes slavery by and slavery of Native Americans, roughly within what is currently the United States of America. Tribal territories and the slave trade range over present-day borders. Some Native American tribes held war captives as slaves What wars in Africa, in West Africa? No. Prior to and during European colonization, some Native Americans were captured and sold by others. The Native Americans captured Native Americans? Oh, I thought they just told us it was Africans. Some Native Americans were captured and sold by others into slavery to Europeans. Oh, so the Native Americans were selling Native Americans to Europeans. They wasn't buying Africans. They was capturing Native Americans and selling. Oh, so the fake white Indians were selling the real Negro Indians to Europeans, the friendly Indians. Y'all don't see what's going on, man? Some Native Americans were captured and sold, while others were captured and sold by Europeans themselves. So Europeans and Native Americans was capturing Negro Indians, huh? And selling them into slavery. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, a small number of tribes, such as the 5 so-called civilized tribes, began increasing. See, they're holding the Nagas. They want to throw African American in. They want to explain you, my Naga. He connecting the dots, my Naga. They told you they capped the war captors. They ain't got nobody from Africa. When they throw African in there, they just let you know they was black. That's just code word for the fact that they is black, Managa. Pay attention. Code word for them being black, Managa. You call them African. Salute. Task Code, the CEO in the house. Salute, Tribe Up. They call them, that's code word for being black. They call them an African. Remove his feathers, Managa. Man, this is goofy, man. This is goofy. 40 acres and a mule, huh? Reparations, huh? Reparations, man. Everybody want to check, man. What about the land? What about what happened to 40 acres and the mule, though? They was talking about land one time, wasn't it? I wonder why the land got took off the table. The truth behind 40 acres and the mule. We've all heard the story of the 40 acres and the mule. Yup, skip on down. What exactly was promised? We have been taught in school that we've been taught in school, right? That the source of the policy of 40 acres and a mule was Union General William T. Sherman, Special Field Order Number 15, issued on January 16, 1865. That account is half right. Sherman prescribed the 40 acres in the order, but not the mule. The mule would come later. But what many accounts leave out is that this idea for massive land redistribution actually was the result of a discussion that Sherman and Secretary of War Edwin W. Stanton held 4 days before Sherman issued the order with 20 leaders of the black community in Savannah, Georgia, where Sherman was headquartered following his famous march to the sea. The meeting was unprecedented in American history. You know, you got to understand why they was offering you 40 acres, because the land is yours, Managa. They don't offer Africans no 40 acres. You was the Indian. That's why they offered you the 40 acres, dude, fool. Not, they weren't talking money. They was trying to give you your land back. Today, we commonly use the phrase 40 acres and mules, but few of us have read the order itself. That 3 of its parts are relevant here. See, they hiding something out. Look at it said only 3 of its parts are relevant here. No, everything is relevant. Everything. Section 1 bears repeating in full. Look, why don't repeat it all in full? Not just section 1. The islands from Charleston south, the abandoned rice fields along the rivers for 30 miles back from the sea, and the country bordering the St. Johns River right here in my hometown in Florida are reserved and set apart for the settlement of Negroes, not Africans, of Negroes, now made free by the acts of war. War in America, and the proclamation of the President of the United States. Section 2 specifies that these new communities, moreover, would be governed entirely by black people themselves. Right in my community, right here around the St. Johns River, and we loaded with Nagas. And you wonder why. I know y'all done, this is personal. Y'all don't understand. This is personal. This ain't a game over here. This is personal. It's not a game. It says section 2 specifies that these new communities moreover would be governed entirely by blacks themselves on the islands and in the settlements. Hereafter to be established, no white person whatever, unless military officers and soldiers detailed for duty, will be permitted to reside, and the sole and exclusive management of affairs will be left to the free people themselves by the laws of war. In order of the President of the United States, the Negro is free and must be dealt with as such. Salute. You free, and you should be dealt with as such. But you want their dollar with their face on it. You want to continue to be subdued in their system. Let's get off that, man. Free yourself, my nigga. I mean, let's talk heavy. Let's talk heavy right here. Y'all so caught up on the check. I ain't knocking the check. You get it, run with the spending. We all like money to spend and buy things, right? Get in spending. But let's talk for real. What if all white people died tonight and they money gone with them? Now what? Now what? You niggas gonna cry? You niggas gonna cry because Gucci and Louis gone and they money gone? But the land left in you. What you gonna do? Is you gonna be like the niggas in Tulsa and make your own money? I'm not just worrying about the wrong thing, man. Y'all missing the forest for the trees. You need to see the bigger picture, my nigga. Especially if you care about not just you. What about your descendants, my nigga? Don't you give a damn about your children and your grandchildren, my nigga? Or you just trying to line your pockets? What about a place for them? What about a land inheritance for your children, my nigga? Don't you know that's what generational wealth is? A land inheritance, my nigga? Don't you know how them other people get ahead? Is that they got a land inheritance, my nigga? It's a finally section 3 specifies the allocation of land. Each family shall have a plot no more than 40 acres of tillable ground, and when tillable they mean farmable, fertile ground, not bad land. And when it borders on some water channel with not more than 800 feet of waterfront, in the possession of which land the military authorities will afford them protection until such time as they can protect themselves, or until Congress shall regulate their title. You want to protect yourself, my nigga? Put your own face on your money. Let me show y'all something else, man. Y'all might not know about this 40 acres in the mule stuff. Juneteenth and the promise of 40 acres in the mule. Story behind for it, the code switch, huh? Cherokee Freedman, 40 acres in the mule. Turtle Talk. Salute the Turtle Talk. Tribe up. Look, how great a difference with the famous 40 acres in the mule, the plot of land promised. This ain't even the one I wanted to go to. Let me go back out of this. See, it's another story about 40 acres in the mule that was before this time that I want to show y'all. And I did a live stream on it before. I should have had it already prepared since we was talking reparations of 40 acres in the mule. But there's a 40 acres in the mule for like the 1700s. That was talking about Indians. It wasn't talking about no Africans. They were talking about the black Indians, Monaga. And I've already pulled it up. You know what I'm saying? I might just have to go through my old live streams and put it up again and just revisit it and show it to y'all like that. Well, yeah, it originates little African American, Native American history that the 40 acres was promised. I've been here all the while, black freedom on native land. Look at that. That's not the one I was looking for, but let's see what they're talking. But it originates with the 40 acres and the mule originates with the American Indian, Monaga. Straight up, you know what I'm saying? If you really dig into it, I think it goes back to the 1700s, not the 1800s. They show you the 1800s. That's the kind of throw off too at the same time. You know what I'm saying? The black, the mythic 40 acres territory, story of 40 ties, African American history tied together. Let's go back to this one because I think they might be mentioning it. In the 19th century, Indian Territory, modern day Oklahoma, a story that unfolds American Indians and same people. What you talking? That's not it. This damn project. I'm gonna dig it up and find it, and I might just do a live on it again and mention it, or I might just add it to a live. You know, but the first set of the area was enslaved by Native American tribes. Origin of African American real property ownership for the special field order numbers 15. There you go. Look, here it is right here. I'm glad I waited and stayed a little patient, my niggas. All it takes is a little patient. Look, so field order number 15. We just read about it. Wikipedia ain't showed you all the truth. They're talking about the islands and all this again. Let me show you. Negroes enlisted will be organized in the countries, battalions, regiment, blah blah blah. Hold on, wait a minute. Negro is free, highest military, carpenters, other mechanics, citizens, number 3, respective Negro heads of family shelters out to settle. I should have read this one in full, but I want to go straight to in order to carry out the system of settlement. Where it's talking about uncovering the lost stories of frontier settlement, foreign policy. It was talking about the Sioux. See, I just saw it in the description. Hold on, go back. 40 acres and a mule, special field order number 15, are treaties perpetual, United States versus Sioux Nation of Indians. See, I read about this. I don't know why I ain't see it right then. Well, like I said, it was from Promise Now Do the Promise Made. You will have access to now the Native Americans. See, 40 acres of the Mississippi. You got to go down. You got to stroll all the way down because they got so much hijack ahead of us, so much Juneteenth and African this and that, and just lies that you got to keep strolling to start getting to the truth of the real origin of it. It was the dealing with the Indians. Why would they give 40 acres to anybody but an Indian? The Indian was black. You wasn't an African. This is the whole point of this. I was promised of black reparations. We just read all the Indians they enslaved. Nothing about an African. Except just throwing in the word African. Alright. Appropriated the land from Native Americans after 40 was quickly denied. Land was one of the greatest gifts. Keyword. I'm gonna have to put it back up, y'all. I wasn't prepared with it tonight. I should have had it prepared, but I'll get it back up to show y'all this. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, shit, y'all. Hey, I know I be shouting and getting all loud on here, y'all. Y'all gotta forgive me, y'all. I used to, y'all gotta understand. I used to teach for real. I taught air conditioning heating for a couple years at Florida Career College, Manali. You know, I had a bunch of knuckles. I used to be in there. They used to call me coach. You know what I'm saying? By the way, and my students. Shout out to all my students that might be watching right now. Salute all my students. They might call me coach, but yeah, I was treated like a football team. I played football in high school and stuff, and junior high. So I got that kind of got that kind of general mentality when it comes to stuff like this and anything I'm speaking on. So y'all gotta understand who y'all dealing with. You know, so like I used to teach air conditioning heating, and I used to be screaming on them. Like when I used to be teaching stuff, and I used to be drilling them with stuff about refrigerant, about gauges or whatever, and they don't get it, and I just keep trying to tell them over and over again they don't get it. I get to screaming, try to drive it home. I used to scream in the hallway, the nurse class, and all the other classes down the hallway. They used to be looking out the door like this, and they used to know I used to be in there wilding, but you know. I was the top teacher in the whole college though. So, you know what I'm saying? I had the highest retention. Everybody came back, you know what I'm saying? It was tough love, but it was love though. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, I'm Blackjack. This house of cons, man. Respect my house. We'll let the door not hit you where the most high split you. I appreciate everybody in the chat. All my loggers in the chat. All the new people in the house, man. Y'all subscribe. Hit the like. Hey, join the tribe, Monaga. Get your membership. Salute to the old subscribers. Salute to the family and friends. Salute to my members, y'all. We out. Peace.